Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
All right. How is everybody? Surprise Friday show tonight because it was just so incredible. Today, the Karen Reed trial. Oh my heck. Holy heck. I mean, if this is a fair trial, if the campaign of the Innocence Fraud campaign that has been going on to free Karen Reed has not gotten involved, I don't see how she's going to get out of this, but it's always a fool's game to predict a jury. But boy, what a bad day for Karen Reed. Firstly, Matt McCabe on the stand was unflappable. David Yannetti had a moment where he said, sort of turned, he was so stuck. I mean, I will not play that that terrible, long, punishing cross where he just was getting nowhere. And he turned to the judge and said, you know, you would think I'd never tried a case before this. And he meant it out of frustration because he didn't hand Lolly a piece of paper, but it really spoke to I thought, to a larger frustration he had with that cross. Matt McCabe was fantastic on the stand. Fantastic. And then we had Jen McCabe, who was supposed to be the supervillain, gets up on the stand, talks about how much she loved Karen Reed, how they were girlfriends, how she was easy to talk to, how they both had MS, and they shared that in common. And hardly someone who is dying to pin her crime on or join a conspiracy. These are some of the best witnesses I've seen in any case. Most likable, best memory, most infallible. And I know if you talk to the conspirators, you know, conspiracy is everywhere if you want to look for it, if you want to create it. I mean, they're looking at periods in text messages. But what really hit me was how much the truth is in the minutia or in the small details, and how all these small details fit together. And what an Innocence Fraud campaign does so well is erase not only the really salient facts of the case, but these small details that put it all together, that make an unbreakable bond. Boy, was that hammered home today. And for an example, there's one moment in Jennifer McCabe's direct examination, and she hasn't had a cross yet. And I was talking to my boyfriend today about like what could they have? What explosive evidence could they have? And I thought, well, maybe if they had her some kind of history of getting drunk and doing what Karen Reed did, you know, some kind of thing like that, maybe. But I don't even know how they could nullify her testimony. It's so powerful. But one moment, and we'll look at some of it in a second, but one moment that was so powerful. So we've heard about John O'Keefe and his shoes, how he was a neat freak, he was an order freak. Something that it really stuck in my mind very clearly about John O'Keefe is that he liked order, he didn't like dirt, and that he liked people to take off their shoes in the mud room before they walked through the house. So Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts take Karen Reed back to the home and said, maybe you just missed him. Maybe he's somewhere, maybe he's in the home somewhere, right? And Karen Reed, so Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe are both taking off their shoes, and Karen Reed just goes running through, doesn't take off her shoes, even out of habit. Meaning, what I got from it was that she already knew John O'Keefe was dead. And those rules no longer applied and no longer mattered. And we can look at some of the testimony, but it's very clear that Jen McCabe heard her say, meaning Karen Reed say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And the more questioning parts were before the paramedics came. Could I have hit him? And both Matt McCabe and Jen McCabe thought she was a crazy person when she called up on the phone screaming about, I don't know where John is. Oh, no, don't worry. He probably passed out on someone's couch. He's fine. The last thing you're going to think of is of what happened to him. And at parts, Jen McCabe was tearing up, choking up. And then the camera would pan over to Karen Reed. And there she was looking like a ghoul, like a vampirish, soulless ghoul. That's all I can say. It was chilling. And at times, just whispering to Alan Jackson like she's watching a Netflix presentation. I mean, what are we looking at here? Her demeanor is so off. So off. So I don't know if this jury is protected, if the integrity of this case is protected. But I will tell you now that I'm wondering if I'm going to have a hard time keeping interested in it. It seems over to me for Karen Reed. And I don't mean that like the verdict is certain, because a verdict is never certain. So I'll be watching that closely. But as far as the state's case, I feel like they have proved their case 10 times over. And for these people who are saying there's no evidence, which you hear all the time in innocent frauds campaigns, there was no evidence presented. I always say, oh, that must have been a short trial. The prosecution presented their no evidence, and the jury all voted to convict. But I'm not certain the free Karen readers, I think some of them, A, aren't watching this trial. Some are just repeating the propaganda. And B, I think when they are watching it, they're watching it with a mindset like everyone's lying, what really happened. And take a look at some of this testimony. It is, it is pretty damning for Karen Read. I don't know how she's going to get out of it. And I don't know if I can keep my interest in this trial. It just seems so, congratulations to Lolly. And it's been pointed out there's no trial on Monday, that the defense has 3 days to put together a defense, a cross-examination of Jen McCabe. What can they bring? That's my question to you. What could they bring up in cross-examination? So there's a really interesting part. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on one second. There was a really interesting part of Yannetti's cross-examination. Here it is. Hold on one second. Let me share my screen. And show you. One second. Hold on one second. Okay. Let me just make this big. All right. Where Yannetti was trying to say that Matt McCabe had coached everybody because he said, tell them that he never made it in the house that night. Right? So this is Brian Albert's brother-in-law, Matt McCabe. Check out this moment.
I don't recall telling anyone to tell anybody anything.
So with regard to your statement, tell them the guy never went in the house, who's the them?
Do you mind if I go back and read?
Take your time.
I think I know. I just want to read it. The them was Channel 4 went into D&E.
You done with your answer?
Yeah, you just asked me who them was.
And the answer is you were instructing people on the group chat to tell Channel 4 that the guy never went in the house, correct?
Yes, this was on February 1st. As I said, none of us in the house had any idea what happened to John O'Keefe. So we instructed I was saying, we don't know what happened. He never came in the house.
All right, so
that's what was my statement was.
Sir, I didn't ask you for any of that just now, did I?
You just asked me why.
So Yannetti's saying, Yannetti realizes he's made a giant mistake. He thought that McCabe was going to say law enforcement and that he was coaching other people to keep it. Guys, he had to keep it all in the conspiracy. He had to tell everybody what to say because it was a giant conspiracy. But boy, did it backfire on him. And he's like, and he tried all these lawyering tricks. A lot of the time, Matt McCabe was laughing at him. And he said, do you think this is funny? And Matt McCabe said, you're asking me the same question 100 times. Good for Matt McCabe. I hope Matt McCabe and Jennifer McCabe, if I had a bottle of champagne and I drank, I would pop the champagne for you and the fantastic job you did on the stand. I hope you're having a toast tonight, that you weren't bullied. You did fantastically with a lot of trickery. So let's watch the end of this. But he's like, look, you asked me 100 times. So he's trying to make him look like he's making light of the situation. All the typical lawyer tricks, sleazy lawyer tricks.
I asked you who the them was.
Objection, Your Honor.
You didn't. You look like you asked me to elaborate.
Okay. So your answer to my question is the them was you were saying that Channel 4 should be told that the guy never went in the house. Yes or no?
Channel 4 was who I was referencing. Yes.
No further.
All right, you are.
I don't.
No further questions. You end on a bummer. Petty Yannetti. You end on a big, big bummer for you. This is what happens when you assume you know what the witnesses are going to say and they come up with it. So many times this has happened in this trial where they assume things, mean things in the evidence, and they find out. For example, another great example was, I think it was the paramedic didn't tell so you never told anyone, Alan Jackson, you never told anyone at the hospital that she said, I hit him. Oh, I think I did. Remember that? Disastrous moment. Kitty's 1993 says, was going to ask you about the cross next week. Do you think she will break and change plea? No, I don't think she will break. I don't think you can break her. And I hope not. There is still me and their theories have been debunked. Yeah, there is still the ME. What is the ME? And their theories have been debunked. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. A lot of theories have been debunked as far as the theories around the text messages and the commas. I know that's been debunked. I can't even keep up with all these conspiracy theories. Medical examiner. Thank you, Sarah Adams. Happy birthday to Sarah Adams. She had a big birthday present with this direct examination and cross with the McCabes today. The medical examiner, I think, will do very well. I think what they're going to say is that same thing that they've been saying all along with the medical examiner. You didn't follow this protocol. You didn't follow that protocol. What they have left is what every defense attorney has left, which is to poke holes, say that it was a rushed investigation. But this isn't a kind of whodunit. And when you have something like 10 plus witnesses all hearing that Karen Read said, I did it, I did it, I did it, I think it's going to be very hard for them to get out of. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think the mystery is over. I mean, okay. So, I mean, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. You have a woman screaming, I did it, I did it, I did it, I hit him, not I did it, I did it, I did it, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. This is my fault. This is all my fault. Is he alive? Oh my God, he's dead. Things like that. Who's hysterical, who's brought people back to the scene, who was seen at the scene. You have the also, what doesn't get talked about very often is John O'Keefe's cocktail glass that he's holding was found around him. So why would the conspirators, they can't place him in the home. They can't develop a third party. Where can this case go? All they have is embarrassing internet finds, sort of embarrassing private investigator finds. And maybe if they have something embarrassing on Jennifer McCabe, I don't think that they can really get her on character because it's so supported by all the other testimony in the case. And you realize why Jennifer McCabe was gone after by Karen Read and her group of disordered individuals who follow her. Because she had some of the most damning testimony. Karen Read is very calculating. It was just, I thought it was just an incredible direct. I don't see how you can rattle her, but who said on the 911 work call? That's in dispute. I thought that was Carrie Roberts, if I'm remembering correctly. Am I wrong on that? Thought it was Carrie Roberts, and many people here, I checked him over. So I guess that's going to be ironed out at some point. So I don't think he was turned over. I think they found him that way. Oh, no, it was Jen. Right. Anna's saying jury may wonder why they bullied people with no evidence. So they've gone scorched earth, as Karen Reed likes to say, on every single witness. You can't do that. It's just not effective. You know, for example, like you take someone who yells all the time, it becomes not effective. So I just wanted to read this to you last night, and I didn't get a chance. And I thought it was so good. So this is Kevin J. Mahoney, who hasn't gotten any more information about what the explosive evidence that the defense has that no jury could convict her with. I'll be shocked. Maybe there's some explosive evidence, OJ glove-like evidence or something. But even the glove wasn't really, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're a pretty sleazy team, in my opinion. So, if you're not following what I'm saying, I'm not guaranteeing. You can never guarantee a jury verdict. But for me, as far as convincing evidence for a regular jury, I think it's over for Karen Reed. And we've seen that they don't have that many defense witnesses. And imagine every single one of them is amazing. The Commonwealth still has 2 to 3 times the amount of evidence, witnesses and evidence that the defense has. So I wonder if the jurors are wondering, why are we still here? I mean, this is ridiculous. Why didn't this woman just plead out or, just throw herself on the mercy of the court? Why is she making us go through this? Everyone go through this and relive this. And there's John O'Keefe's mother weeping. They cannot miss that every day. Such a heartbreaker, weeping through the evidence. Testimony, it's awful. Karen Reed trial, wild conspiracy theories, a dud. So my theory on this, Kevin J. Mahoney, what he's been told in confidence is this explosive evidence. I think it was told as a way to get him to quiet down, because he was out there giving really strong interviews, writing really good blogs like this one about the Karen Reed trial. And I think it was done as a favor to the defense. Tell him that we have explosive evidence and no jury will convict her, meaning you're going to have egg on your face at the end of this if you don't quiet down. That's my theory on it, but they may have it. Who knows? Defense makes almost no sense except on social media. The trial of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed unfolding in the Denham Superior Court in no way resembles the, quote, coverage, unquote, of the trial on Twitter. In the Twitterverse, the defense lawyers are taking a scalpel to every Commonwealth witness and gorging gaping holes in the prosecution's case with a hammer claw. In the actual courtroom, the defense is desperately, embarrassingly flailing away at every witness, each one, according to the defense, willingly conspiring to frame Karen Reed for reasons never explained. It's so true. That's what I've been saying since the beginning. Where's the motive? The wide-ranging conspiracy at last count numbered 18 individuals who all testified for the prosecution, including paramedics, police officers, the Alberts, and various friends of the Alberts. While I rarely side with the prosecution and do my best to describe courtroom proceedings in a professional manner, this conspiracy theory is bat-ass crazy. Worse, it just might work and the murderess Karen Read will walk away unscathed. She apparently understood that a horde of sociopaths, sycophants, and groupies endlessly banging out posts on social media platforms would shape the opinion of the public as well as that of the jurors, who, despite Judge Beverly Canone's repeated admonitions, venture into social media wilderness to investigate matters on their own in her favor. And here's Aiden Kearney asking who's the bigger piece of my words, not his crap, Julie Nagel or Katie McLaughlin. By far, the number one peddler of the half-baked conspiracy is Aiden Kearney, otherwise known as Turtle Boy. He has amassed a whopping 60,000 followers on Twitter. His coverage of the trial is vicious, mean-spirited, and unscrupulous. Paramedics like Katie McLaughlin, who tried to save the life of John O'Keefe, trashed John O'Keefe's family, including his grieving mother, trash. Detectives who collected evidence during a blizzard, trash. He knows his audience and feeds them a daily diatribe of falsehoods, innuendo, and rubbish, and watches his popularity and influence skyrocket. In contrast, Kevin Lanahan of Yellow Cottage Tales, who provides sober, insightful coverage of the trial, has fewer than 2,000 followers on Twitter. Watching the defense hurl fistfuls of feculence against the courtroom walls and asking witnesses inane questions during cross-examination is nauseating. Indeed, they appear to have little interest in actually pursuing their third-party culprit defense. If they did, they would be well aware that they need to discredit every single one of the prosecution witnesses, especially those at the home of the Alberts during the early morning hours of January 29th. Yet, when they have determined that a prosecution witness might be too nice or fragile for their grading style of cross-examination, they bring in Elizabeth Little from the bullpen to intentionally walk them, suggesting that haranguing prosecution witnesses to hype media coverage rather than unmasking the conspirators is the objective. That they are, in the process, destroying the lives of innocent people who, through no fault of their own, can provide testimony debunking the conspiracy theory is of little consequence. Most criminal defense lawyers are decent people. We represent our clients aggressively, but refrain from inflicting unnecessary collateral damage. For the Karen Read defense team, inflicting collateral damage seems to be the point. During the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, Karen Read plowed her Lexus into John O'Keefe, and through her proxies in court and on social media, she has been running over innocent folks ever since. That's Kevin J. Mahoney. It's from his blog, relentlessdefense.com. The link is in the description of this episode. I mean, right on target at the end, he's saying, hey, I'm not this kind of defense lawyer. This is making defense lawyers look bad. Josh A, Yannetti gotta work here anymore. Yeah, you're not gonna work here anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's doing anything for his clout, but if he wins, it will do a lot for his clout. People will hire him because they think he's a super lawyer. Hey, Dean Walker, nice to see you. Thanks for the super sticker. real. Like, I just thought that really summed it up. And he's right. These campaigns work. And that is the reason I talk about innocence fraud on this channel. And creators know that jumping on an innocence fraud campaign is a fast way to make a buck, fast way to get following. And this is, I will tell you that doing it, sticking to the facts and really fighting what is a giant tsunami of innocent fraud in our country is not easy. But
I know how to win the hard way.
Thank you, Joan. All right. So so let's take a look at some of what happened today. Here's the second half of Jennifer McCabe's direct examination, just so you get a sense of her and her testimony and how she appeared on the stand.
I want to keep repeating instructions, but I do want to remind you when it comes to electronic communications.
Sorry, guys. Let me skip past this. Hold on.
Yes.
Okay, what's up on the screen? Is that what you have before you as that exhibit?
Yes.
And this is a text communication between yourself and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to do this. May we approach you?
Sure. Why don't you take that down, Ms. Gilman? And thank you.
So the next bubble down is a blue bubble, is that correct?
Correct.
Similar to the one before, can you just read as far as that? Well, before I get to that, I'm sorry. So you receive that message from Mr. O'Keefe, you call him, have a conversation, he calls you back for the conversation.
Correct.
And then subsequent to that, could you read the next blue bubble down as far as from whom, what the content is, and what time it is?
So this one is from myself to John, and it says here at 12:27. So at that point, I see a car out front, and I text him here.
You testified to as far as looking out the front storm door, seeing a car, and then you sent the text. That's the text.
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down to that. And ma'am, similar, if you could just, who sent it, what's the content, and what is the time?
I sent to John, pull behind me at 12:31.
And what were you referring to when you?
So does everybody remember what happened? They're coming back from the waterfall. He's gotten directions. And she's saying she's here and pull behind her. And then she doesn't hear anything from them. Meaning really from him, from John O'Keefe.
So at this point, the car had moved from the prior spot where I originally saw it. So I thought, what is he doing? Why don't they just pull behind me in the, in the driveway?
down. And again, with this bubble, if you could read out.
From me to John saying hello, and it was at 12:40.
And at this point in time, as far as, let me ask you this way. When you're sending these text messages over these periodic time periods, what, if anything, are you doing sort of in between?
So I originally went to the front door, saw the car, texted them, then texted John. Then I went back, kind of sat at the table, just either threw my phone probably in my back pocket. And then a couple minutes later, I got up again and saw that the car had moved. So I had sent the pull behind me. And then a few minutes later, I went back to the window, to the front door, I'm sorry.
And when you went back to the front door, what, if anything, did you see at that?
So at this specific point at 12:40, when I say hello, I cannot be certain whether they were still out front or if they had left.
And from any of these text messages that you sent, what, if any, response did you receive from Mr. O'Keefe after the weird scene?
None.
Ms. Cohen, if you could, to the next level. And similar to the prior ones that you did.
Sure. Jen to John, where are you? And that was at 12:42. Myself to John, hello, at 12:45.
Now, this is later in the morning, and we'll get to that a little bit.
Just also another detail that really made my blood run cold is that after this incident where Jen McCabe helps her, goes in a blizzard, is traumatized by what she finds. She absolutely broke down in tears describing John O'Keefe and his condition. After that, Karen Reed asks her to visit her, I assume in the hospital. That was my interpretation of that conversation. Let me know if I got that wrong. And never hears from Karen Reed again. So once again, Karen Reed cuts off all contact with any of her friends. And another interesting detail was that she found the kids very hard to deal with, and she wanted more help from the family. Like she just wasn't up to this task. And that's why she said, I can't raise these kids alone, when she pretended in the hospital to be John O'Keefe's wife and like a newly widowed wife. And you just didn't want anything to do with the kids. And it seemed like she really resented them. And I get that you can be overwhelmed, but it seemed like she signed up for it thinking, this is my take on it, having these narcissistic traits, thinking that it would give her a lot of narcissistic supply to be taking care of these kids, and she wasn't getting it. And she didn't really get anything out of the kids. And because if she did, she would stay in touch with them. You'd want to stay in touch, in closer touch with them, knowing what they've been through, losing their mom, losing their dad, then losing their uncle. It's devastating, but no interest. To everybody's completely cut off. Not sus at all. Not in the least.
At some point you left the residence of Fairview, you went home and you were woken by something, and then at some point you texted John later on that morning, the 29th.
Yes.
The next couple of those text messages that you sent at that point?
Correct.
If you could just, similar to the other ones.
Myself to John.
This is Wood Owl. Yannetti didn't ask Matt McCabe a single question about poor Chloe. Yeah, we should start free Chloe t-shirts. Wrongly accused. justice for Chloe. I mean, this is ridiculous. I might skip forward since we all know this part of the story and get a little bit further into the testimony.
Had come to the house earlier. I had offered Julie and Sarah Levinson a ride home because we had just gotten there and they had wanted to stay later. So I also drove home Julie and Sarah. Well, my husband drove them home.
And so you exit the house, go out to the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And your husband, Matt, was driving?
Yes.
And where are you seated
in the front seat.
And do you recall where Miss Levinson and Miss Nagel were seated in the car?
They were in the back seat.
Do you recall which one was on which side?
I do not.
And when you come out of the house and you're starting to go home, what, if anything, had changed as far as the weather from when you had gone in to when you had come out?
The snow had accumulated more.
And when you get into the vehicle and as the vehicle is pulling away, what, if any, conversation do you recall having with anyone in the car?
When I got in the car, I kind of turned around to Julie.
I'm going to.
So this is just not what a lying witness, I'm going to move forward a little bit too in here. This is not what a lying witness looks like. She's very sure of what she hears. She answers very affirmatively, very quickly. She's very sure. Her memory is very strong. These are what great witnesses look like.
He had mentioned that he was gonna meet up with John at Waterfall as well, but he never ended up coming. I knew he was at a house close to Fairview, so I thought, well, maybe if they got into a fight, like John might have texted this individual, and maybe he just ended up on his couch.
Who was that individual?
Tom Beatty.
And who is Tom Beatty in relation to, how did you know?
He has two daughters that are the same age as my daughters.
One of those daughters, at least around the same age as Kaylee?
Yes.
And so based on sort of that process, thought process and what you're doing, what did you do then?
So then I start calling Tom.
And at any point in time that you call Tom, did Tom pick up the phone? Did you speak with him?
He did not.
And so following that, what did you do?
So I know at some point I was starting to call John. My husband was as well. At that point I get up and I'm like, okay, well, got to go out and look for him. And in my head, I was thinking I'll drive over to Tom's and maybe he's there. I then go downstairs. Matt gets up. He's starting to get dressed. I go downstairs. I make a coffee. And I'm not sure how much time passed, but then all of a sudden I hear screaming out front.
Now, if I could just take it back for a second, as far as a decade or so that you had known and been friends with John O'Keefe, with his either his niece or his nephew or both home, is him not coming home, is that something that had ever happened before, you were ever aware of before?
I was never.
Ask it differently.
Had John ever gone out at night and then not come home when the kids were home?
Objection. I'm going to allow it.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So at some point you make your way downstairs, is that right?
Correct.
And then what, if anything, did you hear once you were downstairs?
Screaming.
And where was the screaming coming from?
Out front.
And when you heard that screaming, where did you go?
I ran to my front door.
At some point, did you open your front door?
I opened my front door, correct.
And then what did you see when you opened the front door?
Miss Reed came running up my walkway.
And prior to, during any of the other conversations that you had with Miss Reed, did you know where she was when you were talking to her?
You know what this made me think of? It made me think of Marlon Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire, like Stella, like Jen. They thought she was a crazy person. Out of their mind. And I think when I hear this testimony, I think a lot of this is put on for effect. This is the show. This is the panic show. I don't know what happened to John show. The get the witnesses together and go back to the scene so this can be discovered show. So dark.
No.
obviously the first call was Kaylee calling from the house. That was
Yes.
your assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequent.
Yes.
And as far as the second call that you were talking about, do you know where she was when she was talking to you then?
The first couple calls, I know she was at the house, and then I don't know.
So was opening your door, hearing the screaming from out front, was that something that surprised you?
Yes.
And when you hear the screaming, if you could just explain to the jury, how loud was the screaming that you were hearing?
Very loud.
And what, if anything, was she saying?
It was more of the, Jen, did I hit him? And then she would yell, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then she was yelling, we have to go to Fairview.
And in addition to Miss Reed, what, if anything, else did you see when you opened up the door?
Are you getting this? There's only one place where she wants to look for him. Only one place. Because she knows what she did. And here's where the second degree charge comes in, right? Second degree murder charge comes in right here. She left him. She knew what she did. She knew the state he was in. And she left him in that state. She assured his demise and then brought her friends back to discover it and made herself look like the center of attention and the victim, that she's still doing to this day.
Just
in a better way. Did
yeah.
you see a vehicle?
Yes.
And where was the vehicle and what did the vehicle look like?
It was in my driveway. I believe the driver door was left open.
And what kind of vehicle was it?
A black Lexus.
Consistent with what you had seen outside of Fairview the night or earlier in the morning?
Yes.
And so as she's coming up your walk towards your front door?
Running, yes.
And then what, if any, conversation did you have with her there in reference to that?
I just said, Karen, I was trying to calm her down. Matt came, I believe, and was yelling down that she was going to wake up the neighborhood. And then
She's like, I'm trying to wake up the neighborhood. I want as many witnesses to my distress and my surprise as possible. Latin Rican says, thank you. John wanted to leave and she refused. That happened before the unfortunate incident occurred. Karen never bothered to check what she struck that night. Free Chloe, F. Karen Reed. Yeah. She wanted her to leave and John wanted her to leave and she refused. That happened before they were fighting. And there's maybe some issues of jealousy concerning this woman's house that was given as I don't know. An old flame of John's may have been brought up into the mix.
And she was yelling that we had to go to Fairview. So I told Matt that I was going to go with Karen.
Initially, before that, what were your plans as far as going to look for John before Miss Reed showed up?
My husband and I were going to go to Tom Beatty's.
Now, once you decide that now you're going with Miss Reed, the defendant, where did the two of you go?
So as we walked out, there was a car pulled up and then a plow.
Recognize the car that pulled up?
No.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. So the car pulls up and then the plow, and then what happened?
So in the car was Kerry Roberts. And so she kind of rolled down the window and was like, Karen, what are you doing? And then the plow was behind her. So Kerry pulled up and I believe I told Karen that I was going to drive her car because I didn't want her driving because she was hysterical. So we got in her car and then Kerry Roberts called Karen. And then Karen was screaming and, saying that she had cracked her taillight. We need to go to Fairview. Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And then she would just scream our names. Kerry was telling her to shut up. that we needed to just go back to John's and we'll drive in one car and let's go to John's. Maybe he's there and he's passed out and you didn't see him.
Now, when you open up the door initially and you come outside and you see the defendant out there screaming and all of that.
Right, because they're all thinking, why is she so sure he's at the side of the road or on the side of the road or at this? We have to go. Why is she saying Fairview? He's probably in the home or he's probably in a friend's home. If you really didn't know, those were the logical places that you would look. Karen Reed never searched because the only reason you don't search is where you know where someone is or something is. So, for example, right, you lose anything, your wallet, your keys, or a person, it's all the same. The only reason you don't search, right, is because you know where it is. She didn't search. She's directing so she's manufacturing a discovery here. It's very interesting that she didn't call 911.
Again, with respect to the weather, what was the weather at that point?
It was like dark and it was almost like a whiteout.
And so you get into Ms. Reed's vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And you're driving that vehicle from your house to Meadows Ave, is that correct?
Yes.
That's Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Yes.
You're familiar with that residence? You've been there plenty of times before?
Right. Eve is saying the tail light was broken when she called Jen at 5 a.m. Yeah, she's talking about her tail light. She's talking about hitting someone, and she wants to go to Fairview. Does this sound like someone who doesn't know what happened or someone who thought she hit something, didn't know what it was? And this is why the charges were raised. And it'll be interesting to see what the jury decides what are appropriate charges.
Yes.
Now, with respect to Kerry Roberts,
If any, she may get away with it. You know, things get very weird when you have these big, well-funded, well-publicized innocence fraud campaigns. That's the purpose. They work. They work. And one is as ridiculous as the next. What surprises me, you know, I think that there is a feeling in true crime reporting, let's say, or content that you have to at least jump on a few of them to be legitimate. You don't want to say everyone's guilty. You have to say that the system got it wrong somehow, something. So odd. No, you don't. No, you don't. They're all as ridiculous and really evil, I'd say, these campaigns as one another.
did you know Kerry Roberts prior to this morning of January 29th?
I had met her once before.
And can you describe for the jury sort of the circumstances of that or how you knew her prior to January 29th?
Way back when, after John's sister and brother-in-law died, I would have Kaylee a lot and Kerry would have Patrick. And one day John said, I get a discount at Reebok. I'm going to take you guys for sneakers, get all your kids' sizes. So he took Kerry and myself and we went to Reebok and bought sneakers for all my girls and me. And then he took Kerry and I to the hillside for lunch just to thank him for, helping, because that's what he did.
Now, was Kerry Roberts someone that you had as contact saved in your phone? Had you ever texted her or called her or talked to her over your phone before?
No.
So you indicated that Ms. Roberts then calls Ms. Reed's phone while you're in Ms. Reed's car, correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as that, Ms. Reed's phone, was that similar to your phone the earlier in the morning? Was that hooked up in any way or matched or paired with the vehicle that you were driving?
Yes.
So fair to say you could hear both sides of the conversation as far as Miss Reed talking next to you, and then obviously Miss Roberts on the other end.
Yes.
So the conversation that you were talking about as far as Miss Roberts saying, shut up, and we're going to Meadows Ave and all that, you could hear Miss Roberts saying that?
Yes.
Now, the vehicle, when you get into the defendant's vehicle, she pulled in straight into your driveway, is that correct?
Yes.
So fair to say you had to back out of the driveway, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you were operating Miss Reed's vehicle in reverse, what, if anything, showed up in sort of the center console area of that vehicle?
I do not remember. I don't know.
Do you recall anything as far as a camera or anything like that?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
You back the vehicle out of the driveway
Mm-hmm.
and you proceed to Meadows Ave, correct?
Yes.
And about how long a drive is it from your house to Mr. O'Keefe's?
Approximately 5, 6
Right. So there we get that center console of the vehicle again. And now Murder by Maestro has done a real deep dive into this, says that there is no automatic braking or that you can override on this model of Lexus. However, there is I believe a TV screen that will, help you back up. Excuse me, hold on, I have to help you back up, and that it will beep when you're about to hit something. I don't know if that's what he's referring to, but he clearly was trying to prompt her to talk about something in that center console again, I believe, if I'm understanding that right, if I'm understanding that question right.
minutes.
And when you get to Mr. O'Keefe's house, where do you park?
I pull in the straight in the driveway.
And after you pull into the driveway, at some point you all get out, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall who pulled in first as far as who was in front of who on the way to Meadows, yourself or Miss Roberts?
I believe I was in front.
He would have pulled into the driveway and parked, and Miss Roberts would have pulled in and parked behind, correct?
Yes.
And so after the three of you get out of your respective vehicles, what happened then?
Karen brings us to the back of the car and says, look, see, I have a cracked taillight.
And where on the vehicle was she directing yourself and Miss Roberts' attention?
The back right.
So the passenger side, rear part of the vehicle.
Yes.
And when you looked at that area of the vehicle, what could you see at that?
I saw that there were missing pieces, but there was also snow covering it. And Karen was screaming, look, look. And then Kerry was screaming back at her. It was very chaotic. So I didn't stare in depth, but what I can tell you is I saw missing pieces from the taillight.
And at some point, about how long a period of time is this that you're out in Mr. O'Keefe's driveway looking at the cracked taillight?
Not long, because then Kerry's, yelling at her, telling her she's crazy and that she was driving around drunk and she could have hit anything, and kind of rushes us to go into the house to look in there for John.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask if I could publish on the screen what's been marked as exhibit number 2.
Okay.
Carrie Roberts doing the early lawyering for Karen Reed. You could have hit anything, right? Isn't that just like what her parents say? She hit something. She said she hit something. Because of that, but it's also a very human thing. Like when you're presented with horrible knowledge, to go into total denial. She can't believe that this is the person she knows did something like this.
And Ms. McCabe, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
What is that?
That is Meadows Ave, John's house.
And the driveway that you're talking about as far as where you pulled in, that's not...
It's such a weird picture that they're using. The defense is using this nighttime picture of the yard And I don't know, there's something about the perspective of it and the road that makes the yard look very short. Makes everything look very compact when it isn't. It's a very odd picture they're using. Latin Rican makes a good point. Thank you. Why the sudden rush to get to 34 Fairview that night, Karen? My question was preceded by a why and proceeded with a question mark. Yeah, she can't wait. She's like, because she knows he's not there. Is this obvious to everybody? Is everybody getting how good this testimony is? Now, this is not a liar's testimony. This is not a conspirators. This is not the testimony of a conspirator looking to cover up a 90-plus person crime.
Not visible in this photograph, correct?
Correct.
So from facing Mr. O'Keefe's house on Meadows, which side of the photograph would the driveway be? The left or the right?
The right.
And your may I approach?
Yes.
I'm just showing you another photograph. Just ask you to look at that. Look how it's finished.
Okay.
And do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
And what do you recognize?
That's John's car.
And where is John's car in relation to?
Yeah, King of Kings. Isn't it just getting epically dumb, the defense? It's getting so dumb. So dumb. And, you know, even my boyfriend was on board in the beginning, and now he's like, I'm totally out. Oh, no. Oh, no. He's like, oh, no, I was so wrong. I was so led astray. And he's angry. He's angry about being shown doctored autopsy pics. And the free Karen readers should be angry. The ones who were misled, not the ones who were dangerously disordered.
It's parked to the side of the driveway.
And you also see sort of the garage area in that photograph?
Yes.
Or may I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce in the midst of the next.
Objection.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Who pointed it out that was John's house? Yeah, it's the Albert's house that they keep using this odd picture at night. Thank you. But they keep, it made me think of, do you know what I'm talking about? The odd picture of the Albert's house where the lawn looks like really, really close and the road looks really close. Everything looks really close together. Such an odd picture that the defense uses.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish that to the jury now as well.
Okay.
Now, Mr. McCabe, with reference to what's up on the screen, is that the photo that you just had before you?
Yes.
And there are two garage doors on the house at One Meadows Ave, correct?
Correct.
Left and a right, is that fair way?
Yes.
And you've been inside Mr. O'Keefe's house a number of times before, correct?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the garage door on the left, what was contained within that part of the garage?
His old-fashioned car.
The one that Kaylee didn't like?
Yes.
And on the right side of the garage, what, if anything, was in there?
It's pretty open.
How would you describe Mr. O'Keefe as far as how he kept things around his house, either in the house or the lawn or things around?
John was very meticulous. Everything had its place.
Now, when you arrived there on the morning of the 29th, Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle wasn't parked in that position, correct?
Correct.
From sort of the outside of the residence, were you aware of there being any sort of security cameras or anything on affixed to the house of One Meadows Ave at that time?
Yes.
How were you worried?
John told us he was, yeah, I don't remember, years prior, I believe, he came over and he was so excited that he got in a ring and he would always show us it. He just is always watching.
And when he would show you that, how would he show you? Like on what kind of device?
On his phone.
So he had the ring application hooked up to his cell phone?
Yes.
Now, with respect to that morning when you arrived, if you could, using...
Does anyone who has a Ring camera tell me? This has been brought up. So if Karen deleted these videos of her pulling in and pulling out of John's driveway, would that still be on his phone, or does it delete it off all? When you delete it off the main computer, does it delete it off of everything? Does anyone know? Oh, she deleted it for all. Okay, so it's deleted off everything and it's not on his phone. Oh, that's unfortunate. I wonder how they're going to prove she deleted those videos. That's going to be interesting.
The laser pointer just sort of delineate for the jury whereabouts you had parked Ms. Reed's vehicle when you pulled in and you see it.
So it would be right there because John's car was further over.
Mr. O'Keefe's car was further over toward the fence?
Towards the fence, yes.
And so when you arrive there, you're looking at the taillight, and at some point you go in the house, correct?
Correct.
How did you get into the house that morning?
The right garage door was open.
Now, is that something normal as far as when you get to Mr. O'Keefe's house that a garage door is open in a snowstorm?
No.
And so you go in through the garage door and then you go into the house.
What is it? What are they trying to say about that right garage door being open? Did she change the code to the Ring camera? Is that what it is? I've heard it being suggested. Does anyone know the significance of that? Because it's been brought up in testimony a bunch of times. And Lolly clearly knows it's significant, but I'm not sure exactly. There's lots of little mysteries in here of the significance. But the mystery as to who did this has clearly been solved by now. If not, you do not need to be Sherlock Holmes, to figure out who did this. I love the conspiracy theories. It was Brian Albert, Colin Albert, Jen McCabe. This woman was painted to be the devil. Are you remembering? Is everybody remembering? Or are we all supposed to forget now that she's been on the stand and proved herself to be a fairly likable person?
Yes.
And it's going to be taken. So, Ms. McCabe, if you could describe to the jury sort of how you, when you come in through that right garage door and you start to go into the house, what is it when you see when you first come into the house, and what is sort of the layout of Mr. O'Keefe's house?
You walk in from the garage and there's a mudroom.
And typically when you would walk into Mr. O'Keefe's house, what, if anything, would you or anyone else do when they walked into his house?
Take off your shoes.
And why was it?
He didn't want dirt or that morning snow probably getting all over his house.
Okay, here is the thing that just made the hair on the testimony that made the hair on the back of my neck stick up when I heard this. Listen to this. So people are saying, before I play this, they're saying, some people are saying that she changed the code to the garage and deleted the Ring footage. Mal says that. Other people are saying pretty much the same thing. The open garage door may have been mentioned a couple times. Seems like they may be relevant. Yeah. I'm just curious. So listen to this testimony. Here we're going to hear talked about with the shoes. We all know that John O'Keefe wanted everyone to take off their shoes.
And so that was a pretty well-known rule for anybody that spent any time at his house on Meadows End.
Yes.
And so when you and Miss Roberts and Miss Reed walked into the home that morning into the mudroom, what did you do? What did Miss Roberts do? What did Miss Reed do?
I took off my boots or shoes, whatever I had on. Carrie Roberts took off. Karen just ran straight in the house.
You and Miss Roberts both took off your shoes, and Miss Reed then just walked into the house with boots or shoes or whatever she was wearing on.
Yes.
And then once you get into the house, where is it that the three of you went respectively once you got in?
We all dispersed. I looked in the TV room where there is a couch. Then I kind of walked through a dining room, and then I peeked into a living room. I went upstairs. I looked in John's room. Carrie was also running around different rooms. And then I went into Kaylee's room.
And during this time when you and Ms. Roberts are sort of going around room to room, what was the defendant?
I'm not sure.
When you see her doing the same thing that you were doing?
No.
Now, with respect.
Like at this time, I picture Karen Reed, you know, when you play hide and seek, like hiding behind a doorway. I'm looking, like I just pretending to look. I'm definitely looking around over here because she had no need to look. She knew where he was. She was dying to get to Fairview. But here is where, I mean, you can see when she talks about the shoes, she knows the significance, meaning Jen McCabe knows the significance of Karen Reed not stopping to take off her shoes. And she kind of rolls her eyes. Yes, with like just daggers in her eyes. She knows. She knows now. She's thought it over. She knows what these things mean. And she has to be angry at being made to, at doing the right thing and being made to be the devil in this story, and harassed and harangued at the hands of this narcissistic psychopath, Karen Reed. I'll say it.
You went at least peeked into John's bedroom, is that right?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you note about the bed when you looked?
It was made.
And so then you go into Kaylee's room and check on her, correct?
Yes.
And at any point in time, did you see Patrick at any point?
No.
And were you aware of where Patrick was, or did you know at that point?
At that point, I believe Kaylee told me he was at a sleepover.
And she's going to start breaking up in a second. It's really sad. And pan over to Karen Reed, just dry-eyed, dagger-eyed. Oh, it's so chilling. Lori, thank you. Roberta, can Ring videos be extracted after deletion? I don't know. I don't have a Ring camera. I live in an apartment. I don't know. There's really no need for me to have one. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess other people with apartments have one, but I don't know. I've never felt the need to have one. I don't know. Seem like they should be able to, but I'm sure the Commonwealth has tried.
You have some conversation with Kaylee, is that right?
Yes.
And about how long a conversation did you have with Kaylee?
Probably about a few minutes.
And when you left from Kaylee, what is it that you said to her as you were leaving? Rejection.
I promised Kaylee. I promised Kaylee that I would find John and everything was going to be okay.
So after that, where did the three of you go from there?
After that, the three of us got in the car and we drove to Fairview.
And when you say you got into the car, which part of the game?
Carrie's.
Yes.
Look at that. Look at the difference. Where's the emotion? Where are the tears? You did this. Where's the remorse? I mean, doesn't she look like a soulless ghoul? I mean, am I wrong here? And I'm sure if I'm asking it, I'm sure the jurors are asking it. And okay, so here's my question, and I think I'm going to end, keep it short today. If we're all, thinking, where's the emotion, right? If you're not in on this conspiracy story, right? And you're looking it up, say you're a juror and you're cheating and you're going against your oath that you wouldn't look up any kind of social media, and you're looking at Twitter and you're looking at these things and you're reading about the Karen Read conspiracy, is it convincing after sitting in this trial? That's what I want to know. What do you guys think? Everyone's like guilty, antisocial personality, that kind of stuff. She knows what she did. Yeah, I just can't imagine sitting in this trial, even reading about this as a human being with like full working mind, and then reading about some conspiracy and trying to put it together with what you've seen in court. So, yes, Eva, the Gretchen Voss Boston Magazine article will be admitted. All the interviews are coming in. Everything's coming in. If you watch that, that's why I said that hearing, everyone laughed at me and said, oh, meaning the Karen Read people, you don't know what you're thinking. I mean, the last hearing before this trial, everything was coming in. And the defense, the third party culprit, didn't come in, can only come in if they establish it in cross, and they're not establishing it. Yeah, Woodhouse says the defense is as crazy as Charlie Adelson's double extortion. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's crazier. I mean, we have the same kind of factors. Her own words, obviously not caught on tape, but 10 different witnesses plus. Yeah, very much Adelson vibe. Very much. Let me see if I can find one other moment before I go from Petty Unetti. It's so crazy. Hold on one second. Let me just get. Oh, here it is. Okay, hold on one second. Let me share my screen. Hold on, guys. Thanks for being patient. This is from Bill McIntyre's. I'm going to have to go back to the beginning.
02150. No, show it to him. Don't.
Attach it?
Show it to Mr. Hill and don't reference one of these.
In fact, this is my first trial.
So yeah, I mean, lots of embarrassing mess ups. That was, I mean, just Matt McCabe just owned him in cross today. Jen McCabe again was fantastic. If you don't think that that's a fantastic truth-telling witness, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's just not going well for Karen Read. If this is a fair trial, if they can keep this, the things get very weird when these, like I said, these innocence fraud campaigns come into this courtroom. If I was the judge, I would have had them a lot farther away than 200 feet. I wouldn't have had Turtle Boy in the courtroom. I really would have been trying to protect this trial. I think these things are very dangerous to our legal system, but maybe she hopefully she's has more wisdom than I do. So that's what I have for today. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up before you go. It really makes a difference. Leave me a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Leave me a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, Friday night, everybody. See you tomorrow.